seeing things is numeric values, but without seeing hard numbers. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like, how much money am I making? I don't think about how much. I just know I'm increasing it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'm going to the gym every day. My strength. I'll think of it as strength increase.
Right.
Oh, I'm going to start running every day. Endurance increase.
Mm-hmm.
Every time I see that, I think of my overall value, and it's growing.
Yeah.
And so if that's growing, if you have true value, if you know what true value is, you're not going to just give it off to people or things that don't require it, or you start to look at it as an asset.
Yeah.
You're not just going to put your assets wherever the fuck you want. You literally start thinking harder on it and go, okay, if I put some investment into that, do I get the payout that I would want? Would I get a positive return?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So I mean, literally, my brain's been wired like that lately. So anytime I do something, I put that into perspective. I'm like, okay, is eating this ice cream, is that worth the investment? And like, is the returns of it, can I handle those returns? Yes, because I also did like 20 hours exercise today. Right? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Anyways.
I mean, that's very interesting. It's very impressive to me that could be your mentality, because you know who I am as a person. Ultimately, you do understand what I bring to the table isn't bad. I don't like negate the bonus. I'm not like a negative add to the team, but you also understand that like the bonuses I bring don't come easy. You know, like they come with hard work, and then whatever investment you put in, I will see that and then go fine.
Yeah.
You invested all this time, like the podcast, like all this, like you went hard in the beginning. You fucking warm it down and you got it. Yeah. And now I'm here every weekend, or every weekend I can be here to do this for you, or with you, really, because this is fun. And I love this too. But like, you get what I'm saying, right? Yeah. Initially, you were all, I was like, sure, buddy, and you were like, all right, investment up front, and I was like, oh fuck,
yeah.
Right.
Down payment.
And you were like, down payment. I was like, shit. All right, well, he's gonna put the down payment down. I can't be a dick and be like, oh, sorry, bro.
Yeah.
But honestly, thank you. I needed to hear that. I always need a good kick in the pants from you guys every now and then, because you know me. I'm one of those guys that'll be like, hey, I'm doing real good. And you guys are the guys that are like, cool, Kevin, we're so proud of you. Don't be a lazy ass.
Well, keep doing good. You're doing good. Again,
I'm doing good.
We talked about this off air, but like, there's different levels of good, right? Mm-hmm. Like my growth in good is more vertical at this point. Your growth is more gradual.
Yes.
You know, you can change that vector if you want to.
If I wanted a straight vertical curve, oh Lord, could I be a whole person? Yeah.
And here's the thing though, like, it's a tough game to play with people. If you're trying to help people grow and they want that, they want you to help, right? Obviously, unwarranted help is always a detriment.
Yes.
But like,
well, when people
it's finding that fine line of like giving not the right advice, but giving the right kind of push to change that vector in the right direction. Because I could keep pushing you. We did this. The first time second time we went to Reno, you know, you were like, you guys gotta stop telling me I have the potential. And you were telling us like, oh, cut these shits out from me. Like, I don't want to hear this kind of talk. Mm-hmm. And we realized, okay, that's not benefiting him anymore. That's more of a detriment. Every time he hears that, he doesn't think you're right, and I'm gonna keep accessing that. He goes, no, I've heard this enough, and now it's just making me feel more like shit.
Right.
So it's again, you learn this at the bar.
Yeah. When
you talk to 100 people and hundreds of people at a night, it's like gauging how can I give them the best experience without either overdoing it and now it's turning into a worse experience, or without doing it too much where it's like they think it's a great experience, but really now it's a detriment. You know what I mean? So it becomes a balancing act. I'm a Libra.
And are you Libra?
Yeah.
That's actually fucking dope. But that leads me to one question. Really, is when are you gonna open your own bar?
I don't know, man.
I think
You think so? You think that?
This might just be because I'm reading a book about an innkeeper right now.
Yeah.
But what I've learned, what I've noticed in life is there are people that care and like what they do.
Yeah.
Right? What you just said to me, I talk to 100 people a night, and I gauge them, and you try to talk to them in a way that's going to make them understand something that you're trying to get across to them, right? To them, they're just a bunch of people that are like, I'm here to get drunk, but they walk into your bar, they meet you, and now all of a sudden they got something way more that they weren't looking for. They might get a friend, they might get some kind words of encouragement, they might get some life advice that might change, that might just be another block in the overall structure of their brain, but it's something they needed that will now be a part of them.
Yeah.
That's something you can get from almost anyone, but as a bartender who deals with people, that's something big, and you care about that. And I just think, if you had a bar, fuck, I know where I'd be every night. Not every night. I know
Austin
I can go
would
out.
definitely be there every night.
Dude, if you had a bar, every single one of us it'd be a weekend thing. We'd be like, at least me, I'd be like, me and Kaz would show up, we'd be like, yo, we're drinking tonight.
Yeah.
We'll get an Uber home. We know the owner of the bar, he'll make sure we get home safe. That would be cool. Mwah. Honestly, I don't know. That's a big.
I wouldn't mind it. That'd be cool. I just have to. Hardest part is getting it off the ground. Right? It's like getting property.
It's a big.
Or
There's
renting
a lot of
property.
hard parts. Like and I'm gonna say this. I gotta do our disclaimer before we get to our topic because our topic's gonna piss off a lot of people if they listen to this. But I want to say, like, one weird thing about me is I only want to accrue wealth to help you guys. The world could burn for all I care, quite frankly. World is shit. Whoever fucking gives me all those parking tickets in San Francisco, I don't hope you die horribly because I'm a nice guy. But I hope every morning.
Someone puts Legos in your shoes.
Right. I hope like every morning when you get up to give me that ticket, even though you don't give a ticket to anybody else there because they paid $250 to fucking get that orange stamp on the back of their car. I hope your flat tires are the most inconvenient flat tires in the world.
This cat over here is like, I hope when you die, that before you get to go through the gates of heaven, you have to walk through Legos first.
Right. Like I hope you get inconvenienced just enough to make you feel suffering. That's me.
But heaven's still there. You still get that access. But the Legos, you gotta walk through those first.
Because that's ultimately me. Today I was like, I played video games. I woke up at fucking like 6 today. I know, right? Well, I went to bed at like 2. I had like this weird cramp in my lung and it was annoying me, so I was like, let me lay down or whatever. Woke up, I got bored, played video games, got bored of that, and I opened up these coding questions that you do before applying to jobs. Like they're like little like boot camps, but like not real boot camp. And I looked at the test so I could complete week 1. And I looked at it and I went, oh my god. I could solve that in about 15 minutes. That sounds so boring. That's my issue ultimately. Is I will improve my wealth. I will improve my value if it means I can improve the values of those around me. Otherwise, improving my value is just kind of like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like if there was something, if you needed me to get fit so that way you could achieve your highest level of fitness, fuck, I show up to the gym religiously. I would for you. If I have,
but you just gotta find something that makes you want to do it for you.
Right now, that's computer science. Right now, I'm like, honestly, I'm only doing computer science because when I'm done and I'm making 6 figures and I have all the money, look at me. I live off of $1,000 a month right now. What am I? If you gave me fucking $12,000 right now, fuck. If you gave me $24,000, I'd have $12,000. I don't know what I'm gonna do with. I'd probably waste it all on expensive cheeses and shit. Right? That's the fact. But that's once I'm making all that money, I'm gonna definitely invest into a lot of useless junk right off the bat. 3D printer. Right off the bat.
You have a 3D printer.
Nope.
You don't have a working 3D printer.
No, I had to throw it away. It broke.
Oh shit.
I had to get rid of it. It was just taking up a lot of time, and apparently to get it fixed, it was going to be in like 3 times the cost to buy the damn thing. So I'm thinking once I get my next, this is better. But you get what I'm saying? My value is only worth to me what it is to other people.
So okay, I agree with that to an extent, right? Because I want it to be for your own self.
Yes.
At the same time, I'm trying to get better because I want the people around me to get better.
Right.
Right, same kind of concept.
Every time
I'm not forcing them to work out and exercise. I talk about it all the time because I love it, but I'm not like, Kendall, go to the gym. God damn it. No, I never said that to you once.
Never.
Unless you ask for my advice, right?
Yeah.
But outside of that, like, that's just how it goes. It's natural, right? It's a very cliche quote, but it's the Marianne Williamson quote where it's like, deepest fear is not that we are inadequate, our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond that.
Yeah.
It is the light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. Because if I shine, that gives everybody around me the ability to shine. Now that's paraphrased at the end there.
I'm so mad. I'm so mad. You had a moment to literally be like, in all that is like, why? I fucked up too, damn it. He had a moment to say a quote that would have like literally ingrained it into my heart. It would have changed. So I would have been like, oh, it would have been one of those things that I think about it every time I have a choice to make, right?
You got one shot.
And then you fuck it up. But anyway, well, it's something or this or it's something like that.
No, I get the first part of it.
Yeah, the first part.
Verbatim, but at the end, because the end of it kind of touches on the idea that if your light shines to its brightest, that doesn't diminish anybody else's light. It gives them the ability to let them shine to their brightest too.
See, that's what I wanted. That's what I wanted.
That's what he said.
That's what he said. What I heard.
You know what he heard, and that would shut his brain down. I went, this is kind of a cliche quote. I think that's what his brain was like.
Yeah, he ruined it. He could have literally said it.
I wrote a paper on that quote in high school.
Yeah, you could have literally said it, and I would have been like, my God. You could have told me, you could have claimed that as your own, and I would have been like, my God.
Dude, I've carried that quote with me since like freshman year of high school.
I've already forgotten.
That's why I don't. That's why I don't stop become who I am, and I don't let people tell me to be anything else.
Because it's like that
I don't
notion
wanna be.
where it's like the participation thing, where it's like we kind of have to hand everyone participation awards so they feel better, but it diminishes like that person who actually wins. Like achievement.
Can I just say it's so funny that we're talking about this while I wear my Tough Mudder headband?
But you did the Tough Mudder, though.
I did do the Tough Mudder.
And you finished it.
I finished it.
So you...
No. That's what I think is
We
hilarious.
didn't say that you did it good.
Well, no, I would have done it amazing. This thing would have only taken me maybe an hour, maybe two. Right? Probably Steve half as much time if he didn't have to wait for me. but like, I think it's just funny because this headband, right? Cassie found this headband just 2 days ago, and I was like, I get to wear this. And she was like, why are you wearing that headband? And I was like, because I went through it.
That's
Because I did work that day. But
do you want to throw out the disclaimer?
yes, before we get into our regularly scheduled program, I would like to make it known that we are about to talk about things that you might disagree with. You might believe religion. You might think it's good and everything about it is to be unquestioned. And you should follow it without... with the blessed ignorance of those who live in ignorance, which is as one who does, it is blissful. But we're going to tear down those walls and burn those villages because what we're talking about today is religion. And what happens when you take a genuine question about it and what happens when people don't answer it. We are going to answer these questions. We are going to try our best to actually answer these questions. And if our answers are something you disagree with, I would like to kindly recommend you to our complaint department, which is known as Vanille. And he will rightfully tell you exactly what you need to hear to go fuck off.
So, first topic, actually, because I saved this one.
Yeah.
Please ask this question again, because I like the questions you asked.
So this is a different one. So my friend has been reading into flat Earth theory. Okay. So hold the gas because this is actually interesting for me.
Okay.
So the idea of flat Earth theory is that the Earth is flat, right? So what that entails is that there's an edge to the world.
Yes.
And what that edge border is Antarctica, right? So keep that in mind, right? That's how a flat Earth map looks.
Yes.
Right. So
a bunch of water and then one frozen wasteland.
yeah, one frozen wall that just surrounds our Earth.
The flat Earth theory says Antarctica surrounds the planet.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So there's a lot of non-accessible points in Antarctica.
Yes.
Anyways, whether that's true or not, right, we negate that problem.
Yeah.
Right? Whether that may be the truth or that may not be the truth, right? So now here's the divergence, right?
Mm-hmm.
We have the idea that Earth is round and that Earth is flat.
Mm-hmm.
So what that means for me is that we live in a 3D world or a 2D world.
Yes.
So if Antarctica is our border, and we have yet to explore past that, is there something beyond that in the two-dimensional plane? So let's go back into math concepts, right?
Yes.
X, Y coordinates.
Yeah.
So what I'm getting from flat Earth is that we have yet to explore everything on the X and Y's.
Mm-hmm.
There's something beyond this wall of Antarctica and this flat Earth theory model that we have yet to discover.
Yes.
What is beyond those walls?
Right. You just fall off. Find something new.
Is there something beyond that? People say that there's land beyond that. Okay, so there's more to explore.
Right. Hunter x Hunter type maps.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
So would that negate the idea of? And so this is so I've had it broken down and almost like like those allele charts. So let's say that our world is flat.
Yeah.
That implies two things, right? Either we've explored all of what Earth has to give us, which is very hopeless and doom-like.
Which is very pessimistic.
It is, because we've explored everything we can physically on this planet,
Right.
which is not true, because there's Amazon,
There's
there's
still
hidden
a lot.
gems like Amazon, but the only concept that's worth exploring at this point now is time.
Time, space, and I would say the
Not
ocean.
space, right? It's a 2D
Oh,
model.
you're totally right.
So-
Space
so-
is just some sort of illusion.
And this is based off a friend's assessment of it. But I was like, okay, I'm in a vacuum.
Yeah.
In this 2D world.
Mhm.
And I go up.
Yes.
What do I hit? Laws of physics. Someone just throws me forward upwards, and I'm in a vacuum. I'm gonna keep going up until I hit something. What do I hit? What am I gonna hit?
It's on a disc.
That's what I asked. So he said, oh, the firmament. So that's like it's almost like a ceiling. I asked him, because I didn't.
It'd be like if it was a snow globe.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And I was like, okay. And I asked him this. I was like, so, because I'm genuinely curious. I was like, so I hit the firmament.
Mm-hmm.
Is that it? Do I just hit the firmament and now I'm just stuck to the end of the firmament?
Yeah.
Or can I go through it and go beyond the firmament?
Right.
And he had no answer, obviously.
Right. Yeah.
Because he had no idea. He was like, no, he had no definitive answer, but his assumption was that you hit the firmament and it's just firmament from then on. So if I go through the firmament, I'm just going through the firmament infinitely.
Yeah. There was a concept in physics where I was doing some research. I was doing some research, and the way it works is the way they explain it is if you are an angel, right? You have wings, okay, and or you're a cupid, right? So you have a bow and arrow and wings, right? You fire an arrow. If space is infinite, it'll fly on forever. But if it's not infinite, it'll hit something. But then if you go to that arrow, pick it up, and fire it again, right? If space is infinite, then it'll go on forever. Not the same thing. But then if you continue to do that forever, then space is still infinite because you're just gonna keep hitting things forever. Anyway, okay.
So that's 2D model, right? You have those two options.
Yes.
You either explore all of what is given to us, or it is Attack on Titan, where we're in Earth as that fortress that they had, and beyond that some Marlands, and there's still different civilizations and different land outside, but we don't know because we're in these walls that we thought was the last of humanity.
Yeah.
So let's go to the 3D model, right? 3D model says we've explored all of the surface of Earth. Mm-hmm. Yeah, again, same thing. There's nooks and crannies we haven't completely explored, like the Amazon and all that.
Right.
But
Like
what we can say is that if I went west, I would hit Japan. And if I kept going east, I'd still hit Japan. It's a circle. It's a spherical object. So the only thing worth exploring now, not the X and Y's, is Z. Up and down, right? It gives us a new axis. So that's why space exploration is the craze, because the idea that we live in a 3D world, right?
Yeah.
So now it's exploring into this 3D world and exploring outward instead of forward, left and right.
Mm-hmm.
So,
What are you gonna call? It's Keto. Should I answer?
GP2? I don't know.
I've noticed that if I don't answer his calls, he might make a bad decision.
It's after finals, bro. You should answer them.
I'll tell you a story sometime. I'll not answer it this time.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry about it, Sorry about that, our listeners. I just had a call from a roommate who has a dad, I'm not really a dad. I have no kids, but
So outside of the world of exploration of space,
yes,
right? Because again, if there's nothing, so if there's a ceiling to our up and down, then we live realistically in a 2D, in between a 2D and a 3D world.
yeah, in between, meaning so
We are a 3D object living in a 2D world.
yes,
Because if there's no such thing as going beyond space, if the moon landing was not a real thing,
yeah,
if all these things didn't happen, we'd
Right.
be living in a semi 3D, 2D world.
yes. So how does that tie into what people are talking about? I'm confused because like with the thing with my thing with flat earthers is this: if the Earth was flat and there's this whole wall thing about it, right? Then what is the filament would then just be the barrier into the next world, right? We would just go. Then it would still be an infinite, space and infinite everything. We just have to, Simone that shit. Girl Gone reference, if you know what I mean. But you get what I mean? We would just go, oh, we hit the wall.
So
Time to
okay,
dig out.
so this is where I was tying this into, because I asked him, I was like, what does it matter? What does it matter whether the world is flat or not?
Right.
'Cause-
Either way, we're stuck on it.
Yeah, because really, realistically, again, and this is an exploration thing. Exploration always peaks progress and advancement.
Yes.
But it's the thing of the only option we really don't want is the one where we do live on a flat Earth.
Mhm.
There is no space besides, or space's limit has a limit to it, right? Now, and our X and Y coordinates have a limit to it because we've explored all of flat Earth and there's nothing beyond the walls.
Yeah.
What's there we're left to explore now,
Exactly.
right? What's the point?
That's the big issue. In the book I'm reading right now, actually, the funny thing is that Earth is flat. So they get isekai into another world, right?
Mhm.
They know their world is a sphere, but the world they travel to is flat. And the way that works is there's only one continent on the world that makes it to the edge, right? And when you go past that edge, basically it's a crapshoot because the world is surrounded by darkness, but everything on the edge of that is just a portal to somewhere else.
Yeah.
So it's basically just like, imagine you have like a Fallout 4 or a Fallout 64 map, or whatever, right? And you have this map and you go, okay, well, I'm going to reach the edge of this. And you get to the edge of that and it goes, cool. Wipe away the clouds, wipe away what you can't see. Now it's just a bigger map. And it's still infinite, right?
Yeah.
And then we come back to, what if it's not? What if you reach the edge? You go to the edge and you go, well, there's nothing past this. Then this sucks. It's a big bummer. But then it would honestly make a lot of answers. It would make a lot of answers to questions quite simple.
It would, but that's the problem.
Yeah.
No one wants that. Why do you think we're trying to explore space so much?
Yeah.
Right, because if we figured out that this is all we got,
Yeah.
a lot of people would be upset. You know what I mean? A lot of people would be like, what do we have to look forward to?
Right. If we discovered every single inch of our planet and we knew that this is all there is, now it becomes a
Space
question.
has a ceiling.
Right. Then it becomes a question of like, all right, cool. Now we just mine the whole thing for all of its resources, set up cities where the resources are dispersed, and then go, cool. Everyone from now until the end of time just exists in these cities, right? You know what I mean? Because
Yeah. Like it takes a lot away from the significance of our existence.
Exactly. Because when you put a limit on what can be real and what can exist, then you put a limit on what you can be and what you can do.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I really hope. I mean, again, I believe in science, and science says the Earth isn't flat, but the Bible says. But what does the Bible say about the shape of our planet?
But the thing is, like, again, let's negate that whole question. Let's negate that whole context in and of itself. Right? We have yet to explore all of our z-axis. That's why space is the most. That's why everyone wants to hope and believe. Again, and I'm not saying either left or right in terms of flat Earth or not. I'm trying to get rid of that argument entirely. I'm trying to go, okay, let's go towards like this idea of exploring the unknown, right? That's what we're trying to get to. The reason why people are trying to reach space and trying to explore space so much is because it's an unknown to us.
Yes.
Same with the oceans. Like that's another unknown to us that we're still trying to map out.
Yeah.
If we're in a flat Earth, then that's another unknown. I'd rather have that be the option than have all the knowns known.
Yeah.
Because that would mean that, again, same thing is like the fine structure constant, right?
Mm-hmm.
That is a numerical value that has no units of measurement. So the fine structure constant, I believe, is the relativity of strength between electrons.
Mm-hmm.
And
so it's the general strength all electrons have.
yeah,
Okay.
and it's measured as 1 over 137. Now that's not the right number. Like that's not the. It's 137.036.
Whatever.
Never ending number.
Yeah.
But that's what we've boiled it down to. That number has no. Interestingly enough, I don't remember how it became, but it has no unit attached to it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like with other things, like gravity has meters. Yeah, meters per
Is this
second
like the
squared.
unit of acceleration, right?
Yeah, it's an acceleration, right? Meters per second squared. It has something to do with time.
Mm-hmm.
This is a concept that's outside of time. It's outside of distance.
Interesting. And we're just confused on how it like works in the whole grand scheme of things.
I am genuinely. I
No,
am
because
personally.
it sounds very interesting. In concept, it's like, okay, cool, we now understand the strength of an atom, right?
Yeah.
But does that tie into weak force or strong force? You know what I mean?
I think it ties into the bonds of chemical, like, right, you have a proton. Proton always has to have an electron tied to it. Neutrons just help fill the space.
Right. I would like to see how that ties into, because I think, I can't remember the name of the college, but college figured out that they can make matter out of light. They figured it out, they tried it, they figured it, and it worked.
All this is like, all this is like.
Well, yes, but like what I mean is they took.
So
like,
they're warping light to bend matter?
Well, it's this weird thing. Basically, the general idea is light, if you take ions
Mm-hmm.
and you collide them together, they create these things called not protons. They create a virtual form of matter, whereas so you take two little spheres, right, and you spin them around, and you throw them in a collider, right, and they're spinning and spinning. As they accumulate speed and everything like that, they create like this sphere of I think it's electrons. I can't remember the actual term of the particle that's used, but they create this sphere of virtual particles. And those virtual particles happen because whatever creates reality can be warped. And so imagine a giant ocean filled with things you have no idea what they are, right? As the waves go down and come up, things inside the ocean leave the ocean or come into the ocean. Some of the things that leave the ocean create these spheres that sort of revolve around tiny particles.
Yeah.
When you collide, when they come real close to each other, those spheres collide into each other. Those electrons then form antimatter and matter particles. And then you have actual matter, and then they did some experiments to see whether or not the virtual protons could actually make actual matter, and then figured out they did. It's this whole weird thing. There's a principle of physics basically where it's like annihilation. How if you take two protons and annihilate them, you get an antiproton and a proton or something like that. Basically, it's the same thing. Where it's like you have what is known, and you do random shit with it, and then you end up with something completely random, which then just says whatever is known is now no longer truly known, because if you do some specific actions with it, you get one result versus a completely different result.
Yeah.
Right.
So I bring up the flat Earth things just because like I had that crazy thought last night.
Please, yeah.
Well, I was like, okay, it has to be. We have to have some form because we haven't figured out a fourth axis. Right, this is a fourth dimensional thing, right?
Right. When you get
Two
into the fourth
dimensions,
dimension,
X and Y, 3 dimensions, X, Y, and Z, which is your up and down. Right? So
yeah.
in terms of vernacular, right, you have forward, backwards, left, and right. That's your two-dimensional axis.
Yes.
And you have forward, down, forward,
Backwards,
left, right, up and down. Now that's 3 dimensions.
Yes.
Right. We have to have to be able to access that fourth axis. We need to have all knowns for 2 and 3.
Yes.
Right.
You need
One,
to
two,
figure out what is the fourth axis that doesn't just end up being something that can be made by the combination of the 3 axes.
Right.
Yes.
And at the same time, it becomes a doomsday topic, right? Because if we have all the knowns, if we live in this world where we do know that there is a height.
Yeah.
There's
a max height.
Yeah. It's not infinitesimal. It's finite.
Yeah.
And we figured out that X and Y has also always been finite.
Mm-hmm.
And there's nothing beyond Antarctica.
Right.
And what's the significance? Right. It becomes it's like, what's the significance? Because again,
then all I did
conversation with my other friend, I was like, okay, what is the significance of knowing whether the Earth is flat or round? Like, what will that do to me?
Right.
Personally,
it doesn't really affect how you change life. Right.
It doesn't.
It just means now we have a finite amount of resources that we really have to pay attention to, or it means we could figure out another solution.
And so we got into other topics too, and it became a thing of that became my biggest question on my head is like, what's the significance of knowing or unknowingness, right? Of the knowledge of
the things we could never possibly truly fathom.
Yeah, we are trying to put knowns down. We are trying to make things constant.
Right.
So we are trying to get rid of variables.
Mm-hmm.
What's the whole point? You know what I mean?
Right. And that's
what's the point of all that in terms of me personally?
Right.
Like it's a very
and that's where we bring into our main topic, religion. Like what is the whole significance of finding something? And like we were talking about this earlier. Let's say we prove one religion more truthful than all the other ones. Is that really significant in the grand scheme of things?
Right.
Like if I like you put it beautifully when we talk about it. If I grew up in Iraq, right, where they primarily practice Muslim.
If you grew up in the Middle East, or if you grew up,
Muslim religion,
your religion would be Muslim.
Yeah.
Now, if you grew up, or if you were born in China or Japan or India, your religion would be correspondent to where you grow up. It's very geographic.
Exactly. Yeah.
So, again, I had this topic with a friend who's Christian, but he was also born, I think, in Tennessee, the Bible Belt area.
Yeah, that's the Bible.
That area of the U.S. is generally known to be more Christian.
The middle southern part.
Yeah,
right, it's not quite the middle, but it's a little more southern.
They're hard Christians, yeah.
Yes.
And we were talking, we had this conversation. He was trying to, very biblical guy, and he'll pull out references where he was like, oh, they found the ark.
They found Jesus Christ's blood on the ark.
Yeah, which whether it's true or not, what's the significance of it? Right? Like, what's that going to do to me?
Right.
Besides prove that your religion has truth to it. Right. Whether it does or it doesn't, it doesn't matter to me at this point.
No.
We do find the ark, or we do find this big boat.
Yeah.
And we're able to, as you were saying, carbon date it or use science to determine, oh, this is the actual Noah's Ark.
Right.
What does that matter that the stories were true? But what if the stories were true? What still does that matter?
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
Because it happened. Sure, it happened. Great. We now know.
We know something of that past.
Yeah.
Do you think it's going to recur? Is that the right? Is that what you're implying?
Or are you saying that we need to learn what they learned, so that way, in case the unfortunate future in which God does come down again and say, "Hey, I don't like how you guys been running shop."
Because but the same thing in Buddhism, right? Because they actually have a reference of a guy that was referenced in, I think he was born in Nepal, but he had a real name. It was Siddhartha Gautama.
Yep.
That was who he was before he was the Buddha. The Buddha is a title, by the way.
Yes.
But that's who he was. There's probably records and accounts, obviously well enough to know that he was born in a high class family.
Mm-hmm.
He had a wife and kids before he went on his pilgrimage as a Buddha, right? On his his ascetic lifestyle, which all he did was just wander around and did what he did.
Mm-hmm.
He was enlightened.
Yeah.
Right. So now we have two truths. Again, the significance is minimal in terms of what it's going to do to me.
Right.
Right. Because let's say everything in the Bible has been discovered that can be discovered, and
right. Let's say 100% of the Bible is real, up to the point where the 5-headed dragon shows up and says, "Burn down humanity in the second coming of Christ." Okay.
Well, wait. Now I want to get into this topic because we're going to switch gears just a second. But I talked to you this off mic. I want to bring it up again, and it was the idea of Jesus, right? He died.
Yeah.
And he was resurrected.
Yeah.
And he was. Where'd he go after?
Right.
After he resurrected.
Where did this immortal Son of God go after he was done handling our bullshit? Like, that's my thing.
No one found him. Yeah. They
Right.
just knew he left behind the rock, and his corpse was not left behind.
Right.
Where did he go though?
Right. And to be fair, right? If Jesus existed, right? How much farther can he really go?
So that's what I'm saying. Let's negate the fact that he did or did not. For argument's sake, let's just say he did.
Yeah.
And the life that he lived that was told through the Bible is all accurate to a T.
Yes.
No one knows what happened to him after he left the rock, right?
Right. And then it comes to the question of like, well, let's say he did one of two things. Let's say he said, "I'm gonna go to the next people and I'm gonna help them learn the lessons I taught you," or he went down the road of, "Listen, I did what I was meant to do. I'm going back to hang out with my Father." Right? The significance of either of those two courses of action does not really affect us.
Well, so here's the question I have with the Father one, right? Like, does he leave the body behind?
Right.
Where is the Father?
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, it's a more spiritually awoken question in terms of like, not physically where is God on this earth. No, like if he left this planet, right? What does that literally mean?
Right. Like if they took his body, they were like, "We're gonna take this 3-dimensional body, and we're gonna transmute it into a 4th-dimensional being." Right? Then fine, cool, that's great. But now we know God exists in the 4th dimension.
Well, that implies though, because Jesus was a human,
right?
That humans have potential to become 4th dimensional,
right?
If God's on a 4th dimensional plane,
right? If
God's on a different plane of existence than us. And the idea is Jesus went back to his kingdom on this different plane as a human.
Right.
Did he just cast aside his humanity, and that was what he had to do to access this 4th dimensional, this extra dimensional plane of where God resides in his kingdom?
Right.
You know, it just begs the question.
Like,
or did he die and just keep getting resurrected because he did it once? Was that just a one-time thing?
Yeah, like, is God just going to let Jesus die the one time and then be like, "Okay, now you," and if he's the Son of God, right, it's like, "Okay, I resurrected you this one time, now you understand how resurrection works, you go ahead and resurrect yourself next time." Like, there's so many things about religion that ultimately come down to so many questions that really we can't answer, nor should we really
and I'm not
even
trying
try.
to. Yeah. I'm not trying to. I'm just asking really curious questions. They're questions strictly based off curiosity. I'm not trying to knock any religion or anything like that, but these are questions that occur. These are just questions that occur for me. I'm just thinking, like, because there's always that idea of like Jesus will come back, but where did he go to?
Yeah.
Is he just in hiding as a human and just been living on this earth this whole time?
Right.
Because there's no evidence of a second death of him, or there's no evidence of him leaving this plane of existence.
Right.
There's evidence of him leaving, or there's evidence of him being resurrected and leaving, but we don't know where he went.
Right. For all we know,
that's the biggest question I beg.
Yeah. For all we know, Jesus could have shown up and like, "All right, checked Earth off my list. Time to go find ZX9 somewhere else."
Yeah.
And preach the lesson of God to those people, right? Like, it could have been anything.
But again, as a human, now this is the implication of, right? The Father, Son, the Holy Spirit. The Son is a human and God at the same time, right? He has both embodiments.
Yeah.
So if he is able to do that as a human, are we not able to?
Oh yeah.
Is it because of the godliness within him?
Right. Like, because I was born of two humans, does that mean I'm not allowed to be part of whatever God is?
Now, what was the deciding factor to make him the son of God?
Right. That's the other thing too, right? Because it's just like, okay,
he wasn't born of God. He was born of Mary and Joseph. He was a virgin birth. Again, that's a miracle in and of itself, for sure.
Sure.
Okay. If we negate the idea that, again, if we put everything aside and go, okay, let's just run on the truth of that. Mm-hmm. Whether it is or isn't, we'll just say, let's just go with the easier explanation and just like, okay, that's true. Mm-hmm. Okay, how does that explain his godliness?
Right.
Again, that's just a genuine question. I'm not trying to, not like, haha, poke a hole in that argument. I really don't know.
Right.
And this is coming in our backgrounds, both of our backgrounds is we both went to Catholic school. So we studied. I'm not saying we're fucking scholars in this.
Yeah, we don't know multicultural religions. Well, you do. I don't.
At the same time, I'm not saying I am a devout scholar in this topic, so I can just be like, yes, I know these are arguments that you guys cannot debunk. No, these are questions I genuinely have that I would like to be answered.
Right. And I'm under no circumstance somebody who can answer any of these questions.
No, these are, this is more of like this is a thought-provoking more or less podcast episode.
My issue, what I find annoying about religion is when you ask these questions, they are more often than not going to get mad than trying to answer them.
It comes off more, I think most of the time it looks as an attack on religion or that religion, and that's never for me, that's never the angle. It's based off of strict curiosity.
Right.
I would like to also figure this out with you. Is really where I'm coming from.
Right.
Or if you already have the answer, please enlighten me.
Yeah.
But
put it in the comments.
But I have no idea. So these are the questions that my brain rattles. Yeah. You know, and if we don't have an answer, then that's a great step into looking to a new unknown that we have no idea about.
Right. Like you brought this up to me, and I was very interested in it when you brought it up, which is like, why if Adam and Eve, right?
Yes, I knew you were going to get into that because I wanted to too eventually.
Right. If Adam and Eve were everything the Bible says they were meant to be.
So the story of Adam and Eve.
Yes.
Right. God created Adam, and then out of Adam's rib he made Eve, and they lived in the Garden of Eden.
Mm-hmm. Wait, also another quick question. This is just a sidebar. Mm-hmm. So how many ribs does a human body have? Can you Google that real quick? How many ribs does a human body have? Because if they have 24 ribs, does that mean like really the first man had 23? And everybody else who just has 24 ribs is a weird mutation of that.
I wonder if that's that's funny.
24? Yeah. I was on the nose! Hey! Anyway.
Well, it's funny. This is a science thing. The 23rd pair of chromosomes determines your gender, does it not?
Oh, it does, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It does. And like what? 24 chromosomes? Anyway, that was just a weird thought I had. And following that, it goes like, well, if you have 23 ribs, why do the rest of us have 24? Why don't I get to make my wife out of my third rib?
So that's the story, and God put them in the Garden of Eden and said, in this garden you can live how you want, and the only thing I ask of you, live freely. You have no pain, no suffering, none of this. You are in a essence of heaven. Let's just put that word on there. Like, not really. It's the Garden of Eden, but
like, it's the closest you're going to get to heaven on this mortal plane.
Yeah. The only rule that I want to invoke is that you can't eat from the tree of knowledge. This one tree. All the other trees you can eat from, but just this one you cannot.
The tree of carnal desire, that's open to me.
Yeah. Tree of good and evil, tree of knowledge, whatever you want to call it, right? You cannot eat the fruit off of that tree. Right. But all the other ones are free game. Feel free. Yeah. Live your life to your fullest extent. You're not going to feel pain. You're not going to age. None of that. Like, just live life.
Just fuck, eat, and sleep. That's all you got to worry about. Essentially.
Right. Yeah. So the question really goes is like, why did he put the temptation of the tree there?
Right. Why even give them the tree in general?
Why give them the choice?
Right.
Right. If you really didn't want them to eat from that tree, why not just remove it?
Right.
Why have that tree bestow the powers of knowledge or good and evil?
And you can't say because they would question why they're only allowed to eat from those trees, because ultimately eating from that tree shows that you are willing to question God. Now, if God doesn't want you to question Him, then he shouldn't be putting questions in front of me.
No, and here's another thing, right? So they were on the right path, right? Correct path that God was putting them on. Don't eat from that tree, they did that for the most part.
Yeah.
Until they were tempted by an outside source, which was the serpent in the form of Satan.
The same in the form of a serpent, yeah. He said a serpent in the form of Satan.
Yes. You know.
Yeah, we all know what you're talking about. This is Christianity. Christianity won the war. No, just kidding. But it's a fact.
So they were tempted, they ate the tree,
yeah.
and then they gained knowledge of good and evil, right and wrong.
Yes.
Which implies, in that sense, free will. When they had eaten from this tree, they had recognized that they were naked and they were ashamed of their bodies.
So
Now, so what that begs another question, though. And this is all this podcast is at this point. It's just a question.
it's just us asking you the question and us
Just
asking.
opening up that aspect of your third eye.
Yeah.
Your mind's eye, I guess. But before that happened, so if this tree of knowledge, right and wrong, like provides you free will, what state of mind were Adam and Eve in before they'd eaten from that tree?
Exactly. Were they just a bunch of ignorant fools that just went, you know what? God seems to have it handled. I don't need to worry about my own choices. Like, we live in a world now where you and I, right? Is it because Adam and Eve ate that apple that you and me have to worry about paying rent? You know what I mean?
No.
Or like, is it because Adam and Eve ate that apple that we have to worry about health and car insurance? Or is that just like God needed us to figure that out and that's why he put that tree there? Because if he didn't, then you and me and everybody else on this planet would be like, you see that tree all the way over there? Because we'd all be living in the garden,
You
right?
know what I recognize now, and there's just from talking about this the second time, is we talked about this too on in the first go.
Yes. We
But-
hang out before we do the podcast.
When they ate from the tree of knowledge, all it was a tree that God had denoted not to eat from.
Yes.
What the knowledge, like eating the fruit, is seeking knowledge.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Or eating the fruit is so everything is
Questioning
good
what
in
is
this
unknown.
world.
Yeah.
Eating the fruit is bad, which is the duality.
Yes.
It's a duality concept, right?
Mm-hmm.
The fruit has no context. That fruit probably didn't do anything for them,
Mm-hmm.
except for making them realize that they can do something wrong. They can go against God's word, which gave them free choice.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
So it's almost like, again, we said this earlier, but like they're computers computing until they've gotten an AI sentience and like,
Yeah.
I can
deny the will of my master.
Yes.
Which is something we needed, and I think all life needs it, right? Because if we go along with the idea that sure we can just sit down, is it burnt a little bit?
A little bit.
A little bit. Unfortunate. Anyway, we can sit down and we can go ahead and take all of our woes and our worries and put them in the hands of somebody we believe is far greater than we will ever truly know. But how does that work out for not only us but for him or
Yeah.
for them?
So this is another question I have, right? Because this was something that we talked about in religion class in middle school and high school. Was does free will negate God?
I believe
And so this was the answers that my religion teacher used to give me, because that was a really great question, right? Because if it's free will, that means that God's not choosing for us anymore. We are choosing of ourselves. But God is outside of our planet. He's on his own plane.
my name's tight.
You guys doing yoga on the podcast.
all I saw was him go. I was like, oh.
So
Neil, wait till we get home.
the answer that I was
Cardio
giving
on helmet.
to this question was that God knew that we were going to take that path. So he's known all of this.
Yeah.
So he's always omniscient. But that negates our free will regardless.
Right. And by the way, this is all under the premise that we don't believe God is like a normal person who's just like, well, if I'm giving them two options of eat the apple or not eat the apple, because that's all he did, really, right? He gave us two options: is not eat the apple or eat the apple. He didn't say there's a third option of take a bite of the apple and this happens, or slice the apple and this happens. He said either eat the apple or don't. If you don't eat the apple, I will protect you and you can live in my garden forever. But all that really says is, okay, you're not sentient enough or you're not smart enough to question me in that way. I can't put you out in the real world.
Yeah.
I can't give you all of reality, knowing that you're just going to sit there and wait for me to solve your problems for you. Now, you do eat the apple and you go against me, that means you at least had enough sentience to go ahead and say, well, wait a minute. Why is he in charge? Why is he in charge of how I live my life? Is it because he made me? People made the nuclear bomb.
So that and I got on this earlier as well, and I was saying, if I was God, right, and that's a big statement to make, but I'm just for the sake of argument,
yeah,
I was God, I would use this as a simulation.
Yeah.
Not in the sense of like simulation theory, but I would simulate this instance multiple times until I saw someone actually go against my order.
Right.
And that would be the world I'd focus on.
Right.
Because if everyone else is doing the same thing, it's all controlled, right? It's a controlled experiment.
If everybody's
I know
doing
the
exactly as
outcome's
I
gonna
say.
be.
Right.
But if I find if I simulated this billions of times over, and out of those billions of times, one time, they don't do what I controlled in this experiment, that would be the one I'd observe the most.
Sidebar. What do you think would happen if we did find like an alternate reality in which we did not eat that apple?
So that's another question though,
like,
right?
would they just be like, yeah, we figured out not to eat the apple, and since then we have not had painful childbirth, and we haven't even had to take a shit in the past 300 or 300,000 years.
But that's the thing, right? Is like he took away the fear of death, took away the fear of pain, took away pain from childbirth, right? That's the fear of pain.
Yeah.
Would we really be living?
No, we wouldn't. What? Hear me out.
Because, and I've said this, and I will always say this: death implies life.
Right. That's a fact of nature in any way you slice it. But like, let's say he didn't do any of those things. Let's say he gave it all to us. He said, "You don't have to worry about pain, death, suffering, anything." Then what are you really doing?
What are you living for?
Right. Because you and I stress about money because we need money to do the things we want to do, at least in America, right? And if we didn't eat that apple, he's saying we wouldn't have to suffer for that. So he's saying we could have 8 billion people on this planet and we wouldn't have to stress about anything. I think that's far-fetched. I think being able to eat the fruit of knowledge does not just change. Like, if we never ate that fruit of knowledge, there weren't just going to be 8 billion people, all of us going like, yes. It would be creepy as shit. At least me, personally, as who I am, without forgetting my education, forgetting my upbringing, forgetting everything about me. If you just took me as I was when I came out of my mother's womb, right, and put that into a 24-year-old body, and everybody just kind of stood around and just, as a pack of sardines went, "Yes, Almighty Father, we will not eat that apple," I'd be confused. I'd be worried.
Now, this is a question I really have to ask because maybe I just don't remember.
Mm-hmm.
Original sin, right? Jesus died for our original sins. Sure. We're speaking strictly on Western religion because that's the one that we know.
That's the one we know the most of. I'm not going to talk about whatever, like Buddhism. Listen, I'm sure you guys have a lot of books about whatever your thing is all about. I don't know shit about it. You want me to talk about it, I'll talk about it. But just know I don't know shit about it. Same thing with Muslim religion. Whatever that is, I'm sure it's cool too. Anyway, continue. So,
Jesus died for original sins. What is our original sin? Is it the Adam and Eve sin?
right.
Is it? Do you know? Is that
Also, like that thing. That
I think it is.
What?
It is.
It is.
That's what I thought.
Yeah.
So
Why am I part of it? That's it.
What?
I didn't eat the fucking apple. Right? My
well,
parents didn't eat the
so
apple.
the idea though is that we are ancestors of them.
Sure.
They're our ancestors. So since they carry the original sin, it is that it's hereditary. It's
Yeah,
like
but like,
hereditary.
but
That's where you get that saying, like, one bad apple ruins it for the rest.
right, but like that's still
But that's confirmed though, right? That the original sin was Adam and Eve's original sin.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
And Jesus died to forgive us for that sin.
Right.
What was the constitution that made that so?
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like why was it Jesus' life that
Oh yeah.
forgave us
Why
all
is-
of this original sin?
Like, because basically all that all of the story of Jesus, if I follow it correctly, says he was the Son of God, which means he was God and himself in one being. God and humanity in one being, right? So is that really just God showing up and saying, hey, man, I was mad at you for a long time, but I think I've forgiven you now, and I'm going to die for your sin. But I still got to get baptized. Still got to go into a church and say, hey, just real quick, I just want to make sure I'm covered. Jesus died for all of us, right? So I just want to let you know that Jesus died for me too. Thank you.
But what of his actions? So what of his actions helped us to cleanse us of our original sin?
Right.
Right? Was it his actions? Because again, your story of Jesus is very missing a lot of pieces. Because he was, I mean, from what it said and how it is, he's the ideal citizen.
Yeah.
Right. He knows when to be angry. Right. He was angry when people desecrated one of the temples, one of God's temples, churches. Yeah. At the same time, like he hung out with everybody. Right. He spent time with the lepers. He spent time with the prostitutes. He spent time with people who society neglected and
unclean.
Yeah. And he chose the truth of what he knew over, any temptation.
Mm-hmm.
He was exempt from temptation.
Yes.
Is that what it takes to be cleansed from original? Is that what it takes?
Do I need to
for everybody?
Right. Do I need to go around now saying like, cool?
Or is it more of like we should follow in that example, and that way, the original sin that we got, which was also the bestowing of free will, is used to its maximum potential.
So, right. So you're saying that like
it's knowing that. Again, it's now we have the knowledge of good and evil, and we still side with good. We still choose the path of good.
So what you're saying is like knowing, now having the ability to choose, by choosing God, we are truly forgiven?
Well, I think it's one of those things where it's, in a sense, yes. I think it's, now we still carry the knowledge of the original sin.
Yeah. We
still have that free will.
Yeah.
But we choose the path of God. Not God, but what God wants for us.
But my thing with that is this, right? It's like if you're Adam and Eve and you eat the fruit, the forbidden fruit, and he goes, "Oh, you sinned, I cast you out, get out of here." They have free will now. They understand good and bad, right? They understand what they did was bad. But now, why weren't they given the ability to repent? Why did it take so many generations for God to finally go, all right, now you guys get it. And now that Jesus died for our original sin, and we repented, and many of us went back and said, God, we are so sorry that Adam and Eve ate those apples, but we're not like that. We want to follow your thing.
Well, what I'm trying to say is like, Adam and Eve, you don't think they ate the fruit of knowledge, got all the shit handed to them, and then went, God, I get it, we fucked up, but we still choose you. We will do our best to live by your standards.
Well, he did. I mean, well, again, if you go through the stories of Adam and Eve, that's the story of Cain and Abel, so God's still there.
Right.
Again, I think it's a thing. I don't want people to take this in the wrong context. I think God is just a huge scientist who wanted to see what would happen.
Thank you. No,
I think he was just looking at an experiment and went, oh, they've diverged, so let's see how that goes.
Right.
And it got to the point where it took a whole cycle all the way to Jesus, according to Christians, where it was like, that's where God had, I think that's where God finally figured out, or his plan where he's like, I could marry the idea of free will and still godliness at the same time.
Now the question I have for you is, if God is this giant scientist, are we Pavlov's dog or Schrodinger's cat? You know what I mean? Because like, what kind of experiment did he run?
So Pavlov's dog, that's conditioning.
That's conditioning.
So
are we being conditioned to follow him? That's what I'm getting at.
Yeah. And I'm explaining this because not everyone knows what Pavlov's dog is and Schrodinger's cat. Yeah. Schrodinger's cat is the idea of superposition.
Right.
So that means that my actions are not just affected. Right. So
your actions are independent of the overall.
Well. So Schrodinger's cat is very, very interesting. Right. Yeah. So the experiment is they put a poison in a box and a cat in a box, and the cesium atom has a decay period. Mm-hmm. The moment it decays, they don't, like, depending on how it decays, it'll either break the vial that holds the poison, which would kill the cat, or it wouldn't. You don't know until you open the box and you find out.
Yes.
But once that atom decays, like there's going to be a result. It's until you open the box.
Yes.
So it's entanglement. This is entanglement type of superposition. Now try to why, and this is why I'm getting to this. So again, the superposition is the cat is both dead and alive.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Now the entanglement becomes when you open the box. If we leave the box unopened this whole time, then you'll never know the result.
Right.
So you are entangled with the box.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So take that on a grander scale. How did you become? I don't mean to like go big scenario thinking, but seriously, you are you. We have determined Kendall is the one that's going to determine whether the box should be open.
Right.
So how did you get in that position? There's entanglement with everything around you. We are if Schrodinger's cat is a thing, that superposition implies entanglement on a universal level. We are all every essence, everything around us is entangled.
Right. And that's what I'm trying to get at. So by that line of thinking, then sure, what Adam and Eve did for the original sin and everything, that makes sense, right? He went, I need to know whether or not, given these circumstances, will they sin or not sin? We then sin. And now everything's entangled in it. Now it's a whole circumstance of, well, now I need to see, like, let's say you open the box and the cat's alive. Cool, great. The experiment doesn't end there. Now where does that cat go with its life? Given the fact that it just was given life or death, and right now it chose. I'm confusing our viewers, I'm sure. What I'm trying to say is, Abby ate that apple, and now he knows they did sin. Now from that point on, we're all entangled. Now he gets to see whether or not are we going to sin again. What does this sin mean to us? What will we do with our sin, and what will we do to not sin in the future, right? And if we do all that, then what was the point of sending Christ down to forgive us for our sin? Because now it's not a matter of, I'm sure when Adam and Eve ate that apple and were given all that shit, I'm sure they would have gone ahead and said, we're so sorry, God. We'll never sin again if you give us a second chance. And then he came back down and he said, I'm going to give you that second chance. I'm going to send Jesus down and I'm going to give you a second chance. Cool, thanks. But we already suffered for 3,000 years. We're pretty okay. Right? Yeah, we got to sit. We suffer through pain and death and everything, but we've come to terms with it. Thanks God for giving us that forgiveness. Some of us will go ahead and use it, but we've moved on. Right? Adam and Eve was a long time ago. Nobody even knows what they look like. Okay? Thanks though. That's my big thing with religion. It's like if you take all the stories and you put them all down, that ties us right back to where we started. What is the relevance of it? What is the significance? Let's say we proved everything from Adam and Eve to Jesus, all true. Cool, that's great. But Jesus died for our sins didn't take away the pain of childbirth, right? Jesus died for our sins didn't stop us from sinning again, because we did sin.
Right.
We did sin, and because we sinned, we had to suffer. And now that we've suffered, we've learned to survive past it.
So it's an interesting thing too, right? It's like I feel like Jesus was like I said, he was exemplary. He was an example of
one of the best
how to live with the original sin.
I say top 10 best people out there. Somewhere between Buddha and Martin Luther King. So don't forget Asher Good. I'm just kidding.
So I feel like Jesus is more of an example. See, that's why I don't understand the second coming kind of thing. Right. Jesus will return. Jesus came down. This is a very personalized opinion. Mm-hmm. And Jesus came down to be an example, a beacon of sorts.
And I can get behind that.
To the idea of this is how you should. This is the path that was steered. Like again,
this is what optimal
and
looks like.
He was given choice time and time again, and he always chose the path that he thought was righteous.
Yes.
Which is why he is that that's why he had the embodiment of God. He kept choosing the path that would probably be most happy for this being of God. Mm-hmm. And he chose right over wrong. He chose truth over falsehood.
Mm-hmm. And can I actually just say something real quick? It's quite frankly, it's easier to be able to be that person when you know you have the backing of an almighty being behind you. If he is the Son of God and everything about him is part God, right? When he showed up and he started curing people who were paralyzed and lepers,
But that's the
like
thing.
that.
That's the example of Jesus. He feared God more than he feared death. Right?
He feared God more than he feared death.
Have you heard that phrase, the fear of God?
Yeah.
Right? That's the idea. You should fear, and it's not a thing of like, I'm afraid of God. But if you think of fear in two different aspects, are you afraid of dying more than you are afraid of going against God? I'm pretty sure Jesus was, if Jesus was depicted as he was in the Bible, I'm pretty sure death was the least of his worries.
Yeah.
He would rather die on the cross, which he did,
Mm-hmm.
because that's the way he chose that path. He could have avoided getting crucified.
Yeah.
Time and time again.
He could have
gone in hiding. It's so easy to run
thrown
away.
hands when the Romans came to get his ass.
But he stayed true to who he was.
Yeah.
And he chose to instead of choosing to run away from the fear of death, he embraced death because he realized that the fear of God was mightier than the fear of death.
Yeah.
Right. So
But my thing about it is this: if you and Jesus existed at the same time, and but the difference here is Jesus knows he's the Son of God, and you're just some really devout Christian, okay? And you did everything Jesus did, I'd be very much more convinced. I'd be like, oh no, did you hear what Steve did? You know what Steve did? Hey, what the fuck? He cured people, and he defended people, and he fed people. He did amazing things as a devout Christian compared to Jesus. Jesus showed up as like, I am the Son of God, as we were all children of God. And he was like, okay, sure, but I'm the son of Zia, or I shouldn't say their names. I'm the son of my mom and dad, though, right? They banged, and I came out 9 months later, right? They were like, yeah, I get that.
what if we are? I mean, again, it's not a what if, but like.
But wait, before we get on to that, do you get what I'm saying?
I do.
There's a difference when you know where you came from. If I was born and my mom was like, God put you in me, I am a virgin to this
But
day.
there's always that saying, right? And okay, this is kind of, I wouldn't say a stretch, but this is a little out of the box thinking here. But we are all children of God, right?
Yes.
That's always been a thing that's been said.
Sure.
There's some truth to it, right? If God created Adam and Eve and we are descendants of those two, then we are all children of God.
We're all the descendants of the first two people.
Long lineage, we are all part of the same world tree.
Yeah.
And that tree ends at God.
Mm-hmm.
Jesus could have probably just went, oh, me too.
Yeah. But if that's what he did, then his
But see, here's the thing, though, right? Because we're not getting this story based on Jesus's perspective. We're getting the story from his followers, the gospel, his disciples, his apostles.
A bunch of other people
who were
that
following
wrote
him went, yeah, he kept claiming he's the Son of God. I'm pretty sure that's true.
Yeah.
We could have just meant it at that baseline level that we all say that. We are all sons and daughters of God.
And if that's
you know
the
what I mean?
case,
People just took it and ran with it and went, like, yeah, no, I've seen him do some crazy shit. I think he's his
right hand man.
That's his maternal father for sure.
Right.
You know what I mean?
I've seen him do crazy shit. If that's the case, then I might go ahead and I might say, you know what, I might need to put more effort into my religion. If that's the case. If it's not, then what he did is still really, really special, but it's like this. If I have to fight a war, right? If I have to fight a war or solve the world's problems, but I know at the end of the day, I have 8 billion people backing me up, I can do it.
Well, it's like this. And we always have to throw an anime reference in there every now and then.
Every now and then.
But this one's the most used.
Mm-hmm.
It is the concept of most gifted and blessed versus the hardest working.
Yes.
Right. Black Clover does this. Naruto does this.
Every
right?
anime.
You have your Sasuke, Yuno types that were just born in like the greatest
they fucking popped out a womb and said, "Watch, bitch."
Yeah.
Yes.
They literally went, no, the world just really loves me for whatever reason. I'm just gifted.
Right.
And then you get the guy who is literally on the polar scale of that, where it's no, I had 0 gifts. I'm just going to bust my teeth in my ass,
Right.
and I'll be right there with you.
Right. I'll be right there beside you.
It's that it's a duality of sense. Like it doesn't matter where you came from, kind of situation. So now this thing that I think you're touching on, and maybe I'll clean it up, but there's some hopelessness in the idea of if Jesus is really the Son of God to that divine extent that we put him at, then it really makes the idea of us being Christians, Catholics, any form of that religion, a lot more, I would say, hopeless.
Yes.
Or like in the sense of like, you're like, okay, well, I mean, he was given the God spoon at the time.
Right. He was given all the gifts that we would have loved. I would have loved to have the ability.
I know what you mean with that example, so and that's why I want to clean it up.
Yeah.
Because you're saying if Jesus and I were side by side and we did the exact same things, him having that godly essence is what separates him from me.
Yeah.
Then there's no point in trying to get to that example level of Jesus.
Yes.
Because he had, like you said, the backing of a God.
Right. But if you did all the same things, people could attain what you are because you're just like us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and that's why, again, there's so many layers of controversy in the Bible in and of itself, as much as people want it. Again, the free will aspect. Again, this one right here, right? Because Jesus is human and God at the same time. So when are we allowed to, when are we allowed to condemn him as a human and condemn him as God, right? And yeah, that touches exactly on what you were just saying, and I just reiterated. But if we had everybody doing what Jesus was doing, would we get to be at Jesus' level? Or was he already given that power of, or given was he already inheriting God's essence?
That's what I'm.
At the beginning.
So you clean it up perfectly. That's what I'm trying to say. And that's where religion always falls apart. Ultimately, is it's like, well, actually, if you think about it, like, well, look at this compared to who. If you take all of religion and compare it to you as you are yourself, you find all the holes in the world.
Sure.
But
this is what I like about Buddhism. And I'm not trying to do a compare and
contrast, right? Yeah.
But they never decided on following this godly example. Buddha was a human, and he sought enlightenment. He attained godhood in a sense, but they call it Buddhism, right? They call it Buddhahood. Well, they call it
enlightenment.
But he sought enlightenment, right? He transcended another level.
Right.
He leveled up.
Yeah.
That's pretty much all. But it was never a thing of like, oh, it was because he was born in a high. No.
Right.
He literally went through the.
Passed it all away.
Yeah, he went through normal life and was like, oh, I got married and had a kid. And he was like, okay, let's reset myself to 0. I'm going to literally cast everything away. My wealth, my fortune, my status. I'm ascetic, which means I'm just going to wander as a nobody.
Yeah.
And we'll see where that gets me. And it got him to enlightenment.
Yeah.
He had a following based on that alone.
Yes.
And so his example, which is very near to Jesus's, was the idea of, okay, he can seek enlightenment without having a God, the God, some higher power back him. He sought it throughout himself.
Yeah.
And obtained godhood that way. That seems more ideal for a lot of people, doesn't it?
It does. It's incredibly more ideal. That's why, honestly, I like the Buddhist message. And I don't. Let me make this very clear to everybody who's listening and everybody in this room. I was born a Baptist, right? I was raised. Is there a difference between Catholic and Christian? I was never good.
Yeah, sure.
I never got high grades.
It's very minuscule, but there is a difference.
All right. So, Vinny, we are Catholic.
We went to Catholic school.
Okay. So I was raised a Catholic, right? And now I am who I am, right? Now, knowing all that, I thank God every day. When I passed my analysis algorithms class, I said a quick prayer saying thank you to God because that's the thing I chose to believe that had my back when I needed it.
It's that
in the grand scheme of things.
Right.
Now, saying all that, I will say the Buddhist message is just slightly better than the Catholic one.
Because the Buddhist message doesn't lie to my face.
It's like a holistic approach to life.
Right.
And they use a lot. I mean, they also use a lot of gods references, right? Like there's the Bodhisattva and the gods of those realms.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, Buddha sought God within himself.
Right.
It becomes a thing of and take this with a grain of salt with your God complex.
Mm-hmm.
But it becomes a thing of like we at a certain aspect are all gods
Mm-hmm.
in a way.
Yeah.
In a way.
Yes.
Again, take that with a grain of salt.
Well, I will.
Because gods can mean something very vastly different, right? You have like the gods of Olympus versus the one and the almighty, powerful, true God, right?
Mhm.
Which is this being that is incomprehensible, to us.
unfathomable.
But at the end of the
and
day,
grand
when you like, I was listening to this podcast. No, it was I think it was Alan Watt, who talks about a lot of Eastern philosophy and religion, and he was talking about the idea of like when you're thanking God, you're thanking yourself because you put yourself through that.
Yeah.
When you're saying a prayer to God, right? When you're praying like, okay, man, I need to get good grades.
Yeah.
You know, He's not going to answer your prayer unless you put the work in,
Mhm.
and He is yourself.
Yes.
Like, look at it that way, right?
Right.
Because you will get there if you make those prayers and you believe in those prayers and you want those prayers, but you got to work towards those prayers.
Right.
It's kind of the idea, right?
And that, and you know, in the being playing into the time frame that our editor needs to play into, I can tie that back. I can tie that back into. That's where you get the relevance from religion from, right?
Well, no, we can't cut it out here because we have to tie.
Well, I
we
wasn't
have to
going
tie
to
it
cut
back
out here.
forward.
I was going to bring it back, but what I'm trying to say is like, yeah.
Well, I think religion is a great thing to help build your ethics and morals.
Ethics
It's
and
a
morals
good
is
moral
fine,
compass.
but what I'm trying to say is Buddhism says life is going to be hard. Life is always going to be hard no matter what you are, who you're born as, or where you come from. But if you look within yourself and you put in the work, you will find peace and love.
Agreed.
Yes.
That's
that is
true.
what Buddhism
Also not promoted as like a religion, more of like a spirituality thing.
And
Yeah.
the Bible does it in its own way though too, because
Yeah.
it was 40 years wandering in the desert, and you know,
it pitches it in
Moses-
like a big picture
Moses
sort of
freeing the
scheme.
people. But at the same time, like again, they show hardship. They're just a little more. It's
It's just a little worse for them.
hopeful. It's a different kind of thing, right? So like Buddhism has this idea where it's more up front with you.
Yes.
I would say.
Yeah.
It's up front with you. Life is hard. That's impossible. You're gonna get tempted.
That'll be
Right. Buddha's. So there's the real life story of Buddha, right? Which is he just wandered and he was ascetic and
he
just
dropped
did
it
his
and
thing.
went. And
But there's all the stories of Buddha trapped the Monkey King under a rock. for
right. There's
500
all
years.
there's greater
Then it
stories.
gets into the spiritual realm, but it deals like if you look beyond like the fantastical, it talks a lot about temptation. That's literally like the whole thing of Buddha is avoiding temptation,
Mm-hmm.
right? And he avoided it to the point, and this is when he went on his pilgrimage. He went on this thing, and he got to like 20 or 30 years of just wandering.
Sitting under that tree.
Yeah, meditating, that's right.
Yep.
And he went, okay, it's time to eat. He gave into the temptation of food.
Yeah.
Because he went, oh, I've gotten to that enlightenment role where I can go without,
Mhm.
and I can go with now.
I'm not going to let the temptation control
Yes.
me. And therefore, I'm allowed to do what I wish with my freedom.
Well said.
But Christianity does that in a very, very, in my opinion, wrong way. Christianity goes, temptation is bad. How dare you? You come to church every Sunday, and if you're not in this building on fucking 9 a.m. on a Sunday morning after you went drinking and partying on Saturday night, have your sins forgiven.
Now that's the difference
You're gonna
between
have to suffer.
religion and the Bible, though.
Yep.
The Bible never told you that.
The Bible said
To
Sabbath,
go to keep the Sabbath
keep the Sabbath.
holy.
Yes.
Didn't say that meant going to church every Sunday.
That is fair. As long as you recognize Sunday as a holy day, that's all it asks. That's all it asks.
Holy the Sabbath day is what it is. And so how do you keep holy the Sabbath? Just do that. right? That doesn't mean you have to go to church every Sunday. It doesn't mean you have to do the rosary every day.
No, but that is what those people in
That's just
Bible
how
Belt
propaganda is.
Yeah, that's how the propaganda is spread, and that's the big issue, I guess. That's ultimately my big issue: is propaganda spread with religion.
You don't really hear like Buddhist people trying to convert others. So
No, nobody who's Buddhist is like, oh, you know what you should do this weekend? Show up at the temple. Show up at the temple.
instead you just hear of like crazy stories of people just going somewhere and just like staying in the temple.
Well,
far
a
away
lot
for, like,
of
weeks.
people who I know who are Buddhist or who discovered Buddhism kind of just went, I tried out religion, I'm gonna try Buddhism now. And what they find usually is they like the fact that somebody's finally just looking at them and saying, yeah, it sucks. It sucks. But I'm here to encourage you along this journey you have.
The positive thing about going to church on Sunday goes, if you want to be surrounded by those people with like-minded Christian goers, Catholic goers, you're gonna find them at church.
You are.
You know what I mean? So it's a social aspect.
You're gonna
It's a
find
complete
your
social
people.
aspect.
Right.
Oh, I want to go to church on Sunday because I want to be surrounded by people who are more God-fearing and who want to be around that kind of atmosphere.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So there's nothing. Now it's the takeaways though. That's the difference, right? Like, now why do you go to church?
Yeah.
Right? You don't go you're not going to socialize. That's not your first objective. But you want to be around those people because that's the influence you'd rather have around you.
Yes. And I gotta end it here though, because now I'm starting to dip more into my own personal experiences with religion than the objectivity of what is religion.
Yeah, that was kind of deep.
That was very close because
Because again, I was not trying to say one religion is better than the other.
Yes.
I'm just pointing out what I've discovered out of these.
Yeah, and I was very much going.
You're ready to attack.
I am ready to attack, but that's because me personally have, and again, this is why I haven't ended here. I have seen several different perspectives, and I've lived with people who were Baptist. I've lived with people who were Catholic. I've lived with people who studied Buddhism, and what's Hinduism. And I currently live with someone who studies Hinduism. There's all these things, and I've seen them all, and I've experienced them all, and I've gone, okay, this is nice, but
Well, and here's the problem,
I need
though.
to end it.
Here's the problem with that, and I'll tell you, you're not the only one that does this, is you take severe and extreme subjectivity and personal opinions, and you try to apply it to extreme objectivity.
Yes.
Right? You go, oh, this happened to me, so I'm not doubting that it probably happened to a lot of people because it's happened a lot, or because it's happened,
Right.
X amount of time.
Because this one instance happened, and I'm not incredibly special, it must be a huge issue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And experience is going to be your biggest playthrough. Like, I can read 20 different stories of someone having a bad experience with something. But I can't have that be my primary source of, primary, secondary source of information. I have to primarily experience it before I can really jump in. And even if I experience it that's one time for me.
Right.
And while I have a bunch, now I'm more credible to using those other sources, but I really can't to a certain extent. Because my experience is very limited compared to a lot of other people's.
Yeah.
Everyone's experience in this world is subjective. That's what experience is, it's a subjective thing. You were talking about how, life can be hard. Like, life is going to be hard for everybody. And that's true, right? I've always considered my life fucking difficult. But maybe someone else might not. Yeah. At the same time, they've never been in my shoes.
Right.
It's one of those things. You could tell me your life is hard, and I have to believe. Because even if I tried to put myself in your shoes, I could never fully put myself in your shoes. Because I don't think like you.
Yeah.
I don't experience the world as you experience the world.
Yeah.
So as much as I could try and fit and metamorphosize myself into, okay, this is the kind of idea Kendall. This is the idea of what I know Kendall as.
Right. This is how Kendall would possibly think about this.
But at the same time, there's bias because I still have my own.
Is what is a smart decision for you versus what is a smart decision for me.
Right.
Yes. And that's ultimately why. I guess that's ultimately why we still need religion in this day and age, because religion at least gives us a moment or at least a chance to be that objective person, truly objective and go, well, genuinely, this is what I know. This is what God tells me.
Well, that's the Buddha Jesus example, right?
Right.
Is that no matter where I came from, no matter where you come from, like I'm going to treat you with what I think is the correct way to be treated.
Right. The golden rule, as such, as they used to teach us back in the day.
Yeah.
Treat those how you wish to be treated.
Unto others as you would have them, as you would
have done unto you.
As you would have done.
I tried to be fast.
Do unto others as you would have done unto you.
Yeah. Well, again, here's the easiest way, because that obviously I was put here.
Just treat other people
how would you want to be treated?
Yeah.
Right.
Treat them like that.
That's what I did.
I know.
I wasn't trying to be, all the ashful with it.
Well, that was how I remember it. It was like doing something that you'd have done to yourself.
Every time I picture it, I just think 5th grade classroom with that one poster board.
I feel like Buddhism does the same thing, except they just add treat your body like a temple, basically.
Buddhism does that same thing. Buddhism goes, life is hard, but just treat others how you would like to be treated, so that way they treat you, how they want to be treated. They want to be treated like assholes. Yeah.
It's just harder in a day and age though, because man, I know exactly how I want to be treated, but I know that's not.
I know exactly how I want to be treated, but if I had to treat other people how I wanted to be treated, I'd be broke.
You know what the thing is though? I think we take that too. I don't think we take that to heart. I don't think a lot of people take that to heart. They use it as like a gotcha.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They're like, hey, treat others the way you want to be treated. But I don't think people really envelop themselves in those words.
If I wanted people to treat me how I wanted to be treated, if I treated people how I wanted to be treated, I would be showing up to every bar Friday night being like, free drinks, our house. Oh, everybody, Kendall's got you. And then they would say the same thing. Everybody's paying for everybody else's drinks. Everybody wants anything, everybody else will pay for it. Right. You don't want to go to work, don't worry, I don't want you to come.
See, I think the next level of that is trying to empathize too.
Yeah.
And this is I'm really trying to find an end of this, but we're really digging gold.
I'm having fun. That's what's the hardest part about this podcast is we don't want to.
I think the part that people miss out on that is you gotta put yourself as close to that perspective as possible.
Yes. I'm
gonna treat Kendall the way I want to be treated, but if I was Kendall,
yes,
a little confusing, but
yeah,
it's literally a mirroring thing. I'm like, okay, if I was Kendall, as far as I know him, how would I want to be treated in our interaction, right?
Yeah, and then you would find the thing, and you go, okay, this is what. And to be fair,
he's got a bad attitude right now. He's got a lot of stress going on. So
he really just wants to be left alone or something like that.
If I was in his situation, how would I want to be treated? How would I want someone to approach me?
One hugs and kisses and everything would be all right. But I mean, that's something we can ponder on going forward. But for now, we have to let our editor go home to be community feel life because that's how he wants to be treated. And on that, it's your boy Waffle.
That's your boy Valley.
This has been Couch Surfing.
Peace.